Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for conducting this hearing and inviting Secretary Castro back. Welcome. And before I ask any questions, Mr. Secretary, let me just personally thank you for your visits that you made to St. Louis and made to the state of Missouri. We hosted you a couple weeks ago in Ferguson, Missouri, and I appreciate the attention that you've given that community, especially with our newly minted Promise Zone designation. Today it is a unfortunate reality that a child's zip code has huge implications for life outcomes, including access to quality education, health care, and transportation. HUD is currently working to finalize a proposed rule regarding the Fair Housing Act's requirement that all recipients of federal housing funds take steps to affirmatively further fair housing. Can you explain how this rule will help ensure greater equality for all children in the future?
I'd be glad to. This is really a piece of unfinished business from the 1968 Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act requires that the Secretary take steps to affirmatively further fair housing, and that our grantees affirmatively further fair housing. The challenge has been that the federal government has never provided precise guidance, sufficient precise guidance to communities on how they ought to do that. We also historically have not really given them the tools to do that. So we are closing in on a rule, a new affirmatively furthering fair housing rule. Part of that is an assessment of fair housing tool that they'll be able to use to understand what the fair housing challenges in those communities are. And I can tell you, as a former mayor, a former local elected official, and former council member, I wish that I had had that kind of tool when I was on the city council or as mayor of San Antonio. Because as a policymaker, it would have helped to understand what more we could do. They will file an assessment of fair housing with their consolidated plans every 5 years. And we're looking forward to rolling this out. This is still in the rulemaking process, so I won't go into the specifics of it, but we're excited about the possibility of this improving the fair housing landscape in the United States.
Well, thank you for that response and for your effort in that area. You know, studies show that federal rental assistance helps families stay out of poverty, achieve stability, and ultimately better life outcomes, particularly for children. Can you elaborate on the positive impacts that HUD's rental assistance programs have on our most vulnerable households across the country?
It's tremendous. The impact that we have provides stability for young people. It provides comfort and dignity, as was mentioned, to the 56% of households that are headed by someone who's elderly or disabled. It gives individuals who are working age the chance to get on a stronger path to prosperity. In fact, 43% of our working age adults in HUD-assisted housing do in fact work. So the rental assistance that we give is in and of itself successful in putting a roof over folks' head, giving them stability, and putting them on a path to the kind of prosperity that they want to work for.
And how does the Brook rule that caps tenants' rents at 30% of income help families maintain housing affordability while still having enough room in their budgets for other basic necessities?
What that rule ensures is that, of course, they have a responsibility to pay 30% of their income in rent, so they have skin in the game. They are putting something forward. At the same time, it does shield them to some extent from increases in rents. What we see out there is that the rents are going through the roof in many communities, and this is impacting everybody. The fact is that so many households today are paying 50% or more of their income in rent. As I mentioned earlier, 7.7 million low-income households that don't receive any government assistance are paying at least 50% of their income in rent.
Thank you for your response.